Statues are created to commemorate historical figures or express religious devotion, preserving the likeness of those considered worthy of remembrance. This makes them especially relevant to the study of Elden Ring's lore, which features a complex tapestry of ancient pantheons and forgotten cultures. In this video, we'll examine the game's statues and analyze their significance. Let's begin. Up on the arboreal platforms of the Erdtree town, we find several statues of the Empyrean twins, Malenia and Miquella. They seem to be comforting each other, finding solace in their siblings' bond, in spite of their respective afflictions. Unlike the grandiose and commanding depictions of their parents, this pose portrays a sense of vulnerability and compassion, symbolizing the benevolence of their common cause. An interesting detail is the vine-like branches, faintly visible on their robes and arms. A very common pattern appearing on many statues of the lands between. Another one of these statues lies in St. Trina's hideaway, a small crevice of the Altus Plateau. This one appears rusted and covered in vegetation, meaning it hasn't been maintained for a long time. During their youth, the twins probably spent time together in this forest, away from the bustling streets of the capital. Perhaps Malenia also held affection and loyalty for her brother's alter ego, explaining why this statue was placed in a refuge of Trina. Back at the Erdtree, a large statue is displayed along the promenade, the platform guarded by Loretta. Here, we see an adult figure comforting the twins during their childhood. Compared to depictions of Marika, this individual seemingly had a broader face, and their hair isn't arranged in braids, so it's doubtful that it represents her. Radagon's likeness looks like a closer match, and there's evidence of a good father-son relationship with Miquella. So, perhaps this is him comforting his children. Another possibility is that it depicts Godwyn the Golden, embracing them as a loving brother. Godwyn seems to be remembered fondly, and having won the trust of dragons points to a compassionate nature. Thus, it makes sense that the twins would remember him fondly and honor him with a statue. If this really is him, this might be the only known depiction of Godwyn before his demise. Heroes' graves house the remains of fallen champions, whose valor earned them the privilege of Erdtree burial. Atop each of these structures, we see the same statue, always oriented toward the Erdtree. It appears to be a symbolic depiction, showing a fallen hero being delivered to the Erdtree, representing the sacred rite of burial that was seen as a form of immortality. The lack of a head on the standing figure is worth noting, perhaps meant to convey that the identity of the carrier matters little, at least relative to the importance of their task. There could also be a connection with the headless spirits of the mausoleums and belfries, conveying a sense of endless duty. The throne room of Stormvale Castle is full of details to analyze. Among them is a statue of Godfrey, standing triumphant with Serosh at his back. The statue is probably meant to symbolize his lordship over Stormvale, which he conquered in battle. His axe looks intact here, meaning the statue was probably built before his banishment, and the long march of the Tarnished. Interestingly, this is the only statue of Godfrey in the Lands Between, whereas Radagon has many of them. After his exile, it's possible that Godfrey's reputation became somewhat tainted, considering many of the factions we meet seem to dislike the Tarnished. Perhaps some of his effigies were removed and replaced with those of the new Elden Lord. However, the one in Stormvale remained, maybe because Godric revered him. In that same throne room, we find statues of gaunt men, holding a singular root up to their chests. This statue is also found in several other places, such as the Round Table Hold. It could be a standardized depiction of priests or champions, celebrating the supposed immortality bestowed by the Erdtree. Looking closely at their faces, they appear to be wrinkled or burned, maybe representing injuries received during the war against the Giants, the conflict which marked the dawn of the Erdtree era. Interestingly, the Bellum Highway variant stands on a pedestal of sprouting roots, possibly sculpted after the shape of the ancient crucible, as depicted on Siluria's tree. There's an additional layer of symbolism here, with the lone figure standing straight, towering over a bed of roots, much like the crucible gave rise to the Erdtree, which brought order to nature. Unsurprisingly, numerous statues portray Marika, mostly found presiding over churches. This includes the Church of Anticipation, the place where our player character awakens at the start of the game. This placement seems highly deliberate, as if, in a sense, she's welcoming back the Tarnished after their exile, an event which she seemingly prophesied long ago.
My lord, and thy warriors, I divest each of thee of thy grace. With thine eyes dimmed, ye will be driven from the lands between. Then, after thy death, I will give back what I once claimed, return to the lands between, wage war, and brandish the Elden Ring.
In addition to monument-sized statues, there's also a smaller variant at the Round Table Hold, suggesting the use of personal effigies and the existence of decentralized religious customs. In the Lands Between, she's depicted in a position similar in shape to her great rune, with her arms extended like the boughs of a tree, as if sheltering her subjects. There's an ironic tragedy to her being crucified in this position inside the Erdtree, possibly done by the Elden Beast in mockery of her defiance. As for her statues in the Land of Shadow, they look markedly different in appearance. The first thing that stands out is her missing head, supposedly removed by disheartened crusaders who lost faith after her abandonment. Her pose also looks different, with her arms down and her palms upturned, perhaps alluding to the burden of godhood wearing her down over time. Another interesting detail is her waistband, the same one worn by Radagon, which isn't depicted on the Lands Between statues, maybe alluding that they'd already merged into a single individual by the time of the Crusade. A third, unique variant is found in Messmer's chamber, near the top of the Shadow Keep. Here, she's cradling a newborn child, most likely Messmer. This is the only effigy of her that's remained intact in the Land of Shadow, implying that Messmer is the only member of the expedition who kept faith in her. As far as public knowledge is concerned, Radagon was a renowned champion of the Golden Order, who went on to become second Elden Lord after Godfrey's banishment. We find his statues in several churches, like the Church of Pilgrimage and the Stormcaller Church. His arms are extended outwards, palms flat, a gesture known as Golden Order totality, symbolizing his religious devotion. Indeed, he was the one who attempted to mend the Elden Ring after Marika shattered it, hinting that his faith held strong, unlike hers. He's also the one who sealed the Erdtree's entrance, as suggested by the lattice pattern on his statue, matching the symbol on impenetrable roots. The capital's statue is prominently featured in Goldmask's questline, where his duality with Marika can be unveiled. On that topic, our dear friend Miriel has valuable knowledge to share.
A famed sculptor of the Erdtree capital was once summoned to render Lord Radagon's likeness in giant stature, when he glimpsed the skeleton in Radagon's closet. And as such, it's said the great statue harbors his secret too.
The exact event this sculptor glimpsed isn't specified, though it's fair to assume he probably witnessed them transform into each other, just like we do, before the final battle. Thus, he concealed the truth within his craftsmanship, leaving behind a crucial clue which would allow Goldmask to produce a mending rune many years later. Rosus, the Usher of Death, acts as a guide for those returning to the roots. As such, his statues emit trails of blue light, pointing the way to the nearest catacombs, where tree burial can be achieved. We know his name thanks to his axe's description, though it remains unclear whether he was an actual creature or a personification used as cultural iconography. He resembles a gaunt humanoid with a pronounced hunchback and stooped posture, with twig-like horns on his forehead shaped in the form of a crown. His feet resemble those of burial watchdogs, supporting the idea that he's a fictional construct, personified as a mythical creature. Maybe his form was inspired from deathbirds, the former gravekeepers of the Lands Between, before the age of the Erdtree. Interestingly, we also find him in the Land of Shadow, meaning his depiction likely predates Messmer's crusade. back when the Hornsent region was still connected to the continent. Within the inner walls of Elphael, a particular set of depictions stands out. We find them along the murals of the Halig tree's rotten stump, the presumed remains of an ancient temple fallen to ruin. This mysterious figure looks like a cloaked man holding a staff, surrounded by corpses, or maybe spirits on both sides. This imagery is somewhat reminiscent of the Divine Gate, and was perhaps meant to depict the act of ascension. Additionally, the staff shares a resemblance to the Shadow Realm's Pillar of Suppression. Ancient dynasty priests apparently tried to divine the future. So, maybe they prophesied a ritual based on death, which would lead to godhood. The same ritual later conceived by the Hornsent, subverted by Marika, and performed by Miquella in Shadow of the Erdtree. Perhaps this is where he first learned about the Shadow Realm and the suppressed history concealed by his mother. The ruins of Rauh are a unique area in Elden Ring. This region was not only considered sacred by the Hornsent, but was also spared from the worst of Messmer's pillaging, thanks to the persuasion of Fire Knights. Thus, the ruins still contain ancient relics, structures, and iconography, like these giant statues, for instance. They depict a feminine figure with a neutral expression, wearing a hat and a veil over her hair. Some of the kindred pests can be seen praying to her, possibly alluding to a connection with scarlet rot. The nearby presence of Miranda flowers could point to Miranda, Maiden of the Flower Crucible, mentioned in a cut item description. Regardless of her identity, she clearly was a highly important figure to the Rauh civilization, likely revered as queen or goddess. The figure nicknamed Elden John looks like an elderly man with a long beard. His statues are commonly found in dynastic ruins of the underground rivers, such as the Uul Palace and the Mogwin Mausoleum. Roots and branches enwreathe his legs, extending up to the stone tablet he clutches against his chest. On it, we can discern the symbol of a great tree surrounded by a circle, or bubble. Once again, possibly alluding to the dynasty priest's prophetic visions. Mohg and his followers seemingly revere these statues and the cultural legacy they represent, likely using them to legitimize their claim to power. Interestingly, he appears to only have one functioning eye, a recurring pattern among children of Marika. This could be a hint pointing to a common ancestry, connecting the demigod lineage to this nameless man. The entrance to the Erdtree consists of a tall slab of stone, partially broken to reveal columns and a narrow stairway. Directly above the first steps, there's a strange, smiling imp statue, sitting cross-legged above the threshold. Curiously, he can only be seen in the Capital of Ash version of Leyndell, entirely invisible before burning the Erdtree. It might be a reference to the real-life Lincoln Imp, which has been subject of folk tales, often portrayed as a mischievous devil. Whether he's a simple Easter egg or carries deeper significance is up to interpretation, though the fact that he only appears at the end of the game seems meaningful. Perhaps it was another hidden feature of the capital's sculptors hiding a secret, this time in mockery of the Erdtree's vulnerability to the flame of ruin. Thus, they hid it behind an illusion, only to be revealed at the final hour of the Golden Order, when its grandest symbol is set ablaze. If you enjoy my content, remember to like and subscribe. Thank you for watching.